In this HomeDax tutorial, we will show you how to pull comparable listings using the agent tool on StreetEasy.com. The purpose of pulling comps, as we say in real estate, is to help you both as a buyer figure out how much a property is worth and how you should construct an offer, and also as a seller to figure out what your property may be worth and how to devise a strategy as it relates to your initial listing price. So what you'll want to do as a first step is to log into StreetEasy using your agent account. Once you are logged in, on the right, you'll have a couple of different features. You'll have the agent tools as well as the account buttons. To generate the comparable report, you want to hover over the Agent Resource Center button, and then down here on the left, you'll see something that says Comparables Report. So go ahead and click on Comparables Report, and then it will give you the interface through which you can run the search. Now the interface is fairly robust, and it does help narrow down the types of properties you're going to be looking for. And it's worth considering that when you're running comps, it's very important that not only are you looking for properties in the same neighborhood, you're looking for properties at a similar price point, also with a similar layout, i.e. number of bedrooms, and also very important to make sure that if you're running comps for a co-op, you're comparing only to other co-ops, and if you're running comps for a condo, you're only comparing to other condominiums. Co-ops are significantly cheaper than condominiums, and so they have completely different market values, and they cannot be compared, simply put, to condos when running a comps report. Now, similarly, if you're looking for a house or a multifamily, you can also select that in the StreetEasy report. So if we were to say, for example, that we were looking to purchase a condominium in the Lower East Side and we wanted to spend less than $2 million, we would first of all add the Lower East Side to our location. And keep in mind, if you are in Lower Manhattan, you may also want to think about other neighborhoods, primarily because the neighborhoods are quite small. So if, for example, somebody is thinking of something in the Lower East Side, they may very well consider the southern edge of the East Village. They may consider Nolita as a whole, possibly even parts of Little Italy or possibly Chinatown. So this here is an interactive map which allows you to select the particular neighborhoods that might be of interest. So in this case, we will look at Nolita as well as the Lower East Side. And let's say the person is looking really to buy something pretty much right on the border here and possibly a little bit in this direction. So we're going to unselect Two Bridges, which is a subset of the Lower East Side. Technically, it's a different neighborhood. Looks like the box is not working to uncheck it. So we're going to just click Apply. And then in here, we're going to just redo it. And we'll make sure that only the Lower East Side and Nolita are selected. Interesting. Well, it doesn't look like it's allowing us to do that. So you'll just want to keep in mind then, if you're looking for listings in the Lower East Side, you'll want to be mindful of comps in Two Bridges because it is significantly further south. So it is possible that the properties will be much less expensive. So moving forward, under type, we're going to want to select condominium. And then for price, we mentioned 2 million or below. And let's assume in this case, we're looking for a 1-bedroom. So we've put the location, we've put the type of property, specifically a sale transaction. If you're doing rentals, the comps report will also work. You just want to select rentals. We've chosen condos as the type. We've put a cap on the price, the bedrooms. The bathrooms we can just leave as any. And then as far as show recorded sales, what I generally like to do is to put 180 days. And that's because more often than not, you're not going to find a huge number of sales for the last 90 days, unless you're looking in a particular part of the city that has a tremendous amount of inventory. So if you're in Midtown, for example, the search criteria we put here would generate dozens, probably dozens of closed transactions. But if you're in the Lower East Side or Chelsea or somewhere downtown, for that matter, there's going to be far fewer to look at. So generally suggest 180 days and then click generate comparables report. So give it a minute to load, and then we're going to look at the results. Okay, so what it'll do is it'll generate an output. It's going to put some averages up here. So based on our search, the average price per square foot for the condominiums in this area are $18.83, and there are 30 listings for sale. There's also the same data for in contract, unavailable, and recorded. Now, as far as in contract is concerned, what that means is a property has been listed and an offer has been accepted, and then a contract has been fully executed between the buyer and the seller. So when you see in this column time on market, this is the number of days it took from the day you listed the property to the day that contract was signed. So if it's in contract, the listing has not closed yet, and furthermore, these numbers here and the averages, for example here, the averages here are reflective of how long it takes from listing to going into contract. It doesn't include the time from contract to close. Now, this is an interesting search because the particular neighborhoods we're looking at have a number of new listings coming online from a large building called One Manhattan Square. So we actually have artificially increased the number of results specifically to the in contracts. So if you look at the in contracts, you're going to see that they're all from the same building called 252 South Street. And furthermore, it looks like these days on market are a bit questionable, to be honest, and therefore it's actually skewed all of our data. So unfortunately, when you have a number of new construction buildings, they tend to really skew and distort the comparables analysis. And furthermore, it's important to remember that new construction is generally speaking much more expensive than existing stock apartments or homes. And specifically, we mean, let's say we're looking at a condo. If you're buying a condo in the Lower East Side, you'll see here that these active listings for the new construction, 252 South Street, as of today are $2,000 a square foot. This is another new construction here, a little further east, so slightly less expensive. But the idea is that it's essentially $2,000 a square foot. And then so if you look at existing construction apartments, they're going to be much less expensive. So for example, here you have 1119, 1075. Now this one in particular is in Two Bridges, so it's a little further east, southeast in the Lower East Side, but we just mentioned that for illustrative purposes. It's also worth noting that unavailable listings, in our opinion, are not super valuable, and that's because they essentially have failed to sell them. So whatever price they listed at is more or less irrelevant because the market, the buyer, the seller, rejected the reality of what the property was worth, and therefore no transaction happened. So customarily, when we're working with buyers and sellers and running comps, we're really only going to be looking at active listings, in contract, and recorded sales. Now, if we go to the recorded sales here, we're going to see that there's a ton of them, and that's primarily because we've had these closings as discussed in that one new construction building in Two Bridges in the Lower East Side. So I think we may want to run a different CMA just so that we don't have that same distortion. So let us include only Nolita with the same other criteria and see if we have fewer results that are not as skewed. Okay, so this is a little bit more helpful, at least for the active listings. These are existing construction units, so you can see the averages here. And this will allow you to compare and contrast to your subject property. So if you're looking to buy a unit in this area and the asking price is say $1,700 a square foot, you'll think it may compare favorably to these two. You'll probably want to figure out why. Is this building extremely high-end residential? Does it have full-time doorman? Is it totally got renovated? Is it a newer building? You'll want to try to understand the differences, and then the value you add as an agent is to convey to your client the differentiation and the reasons why you think that the property they're thinking of buying or selling is worth more or less than the averages and these particular comps. Now, the in-contract listings, again, in this case, this is a new construction building. So these numbers here, 2581, are going to be significantly higher than the averages for the active listings. So you would explain that to your client as it's simply being new construction. And as far as recorded sales in this case, note that there are none. Oh, rather, let's take a look. Seems like there's a mistake. So there's recorded sales, average price $1 million. Average price per square foot is 0. And what this means is actually for some of these comps, I can see here, they did not include the square footage in the listing, and therefore the price per square foot could not be determined. Now, if you really need to figure out the square footage of a property to run a comps report, you can actually look it up very easily by looking for the property tax information online. So if you go to the New York City property tax bill website, so we just Googled it, and if you click on this first result, you're going to be presented with the NYC Department of Finance page, and you can click on Access Your Property Tax Bill. Here, it will ask you to search either by property address or by BBL, otherwise known as borough, block, and lot. If you click on Property Address Search, you should be able to simply type in a particular address to figure out the size. So in this case, 259 Elizabeth Street, apartment 2C. So if we run that search, we will put in Manhattan, 259 Elizabeth Street, apartment 2C, and click search. You'll see that we were able to pull up the information. You can see the name of the owners. And then if you go to Notice of Property Value, click on the most recent one. And on this official document, if you scroll down, you will see net square footage of the lot from the condo declaration. So the square footage of this apartment is 450. So what you could do in this comp report, because there's very few listings, you would need to manually calculate the price per square foot based on the square footage that you discovered using the Department of Finance website. So that is how you would pull together comps for a client. You can also export them as well. So if you'd like, you can click this button and it can either generate a PDF output or an Excel or CSV file. It's up to you and your stylistic preferences how you want to convey the information to your client. There's a number of ways to do it, but the most important thing is to find bread and butter, the best comps available to really make your case as to the fair value of the property your client's looking to buy or to sell. Just a final reminder as well to make sure that you're searching for particular property types. So if we're looking at a co-op, we would really need to be looking only for co-ops. And with a co-op, we will not have that same level of detail when it comes to square footages. And that's because most cooperative offering plans do not have the square footages listed. Therefore, when we're looking at a comps report for a co-op, we're actually going to be more so focused on the relative size differentials between units as opposed to the surgical price per square foot analysis that we would be conducting with a condominium. For example, if we look in Chelsea and we look for co-ops, we can put any beds and we'll generate. We will likely see results that will have most of the square footage fields blank for the listings. So if we look here, you will see that they are showing averages, but it would not really be helpful for you to give an average like this to your client. And that's because if you look at the data for these listings, you'll see that the vast majority of the listings, they don't have any square footage listed. And even for the ones that do, these numbers are nothing more than an approximation made by a listing agent. There's nothing official about these numbers. So if we were to compare this listing and this listing, we would want to open the floor plans, take a look at the size of the living area, take a look at the size of the bedrooms, the foyer, and the closets, anything that is significant. And then we would want to compare the relative sizes of the two when thinking about how to adjust the prices of the comps to come up with fair value for our subject property. If you have any questions about running comps, buying or selling in the city, leave us a comment below the video. And if there are any topics you'd like us to talk about, shoot us a note, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.